It's always wonderful to be here in Kol Torah, and I hope we'll still have some opportunities, as long as it's not in the winter. And you're always welcome to visit me over there. It's a very special kehillah. Rabbi Chabusha is a very special Rav. The truth is that I had more of an opportunity this past year to make a kesher with Rabbi Chabusha, because we learned not far away from each other in the mornings. I had a little opportunity from after Sukkot while my tenure in Magen David, and it was a pleasure to get to know Rabbi Chabusha, a real Talmid Chacham who really understands and tries to get to every single detail le'umka. So you should know, whenever you're getting a psak from Rabbi Chabusha, you're safe and sound, and it's a tremendous zechut to have such a Mara De'atra. So I thank you very much for all the years that I got to know you. And Bezat Hashem, we'll keep in kesher. If you answer me after the beeper and you call me back, that we'll be able to connect in that way. Now that's a beautiful thing. Our kids are also friends with his kids, and it's a special community called Torah. Kishmo Kenhu. There's a Kol Torah coming, and that's why, despite the fact that right now I'm in one of the busiest times, that my house is upside down and I've been packing, and it says in the Zohar HaKadosh that moving is in place of a gilgul. So I'm being mitgalgel, so I figured to roll over here as well and have the opportunity to share with you Divrei Torah. I wanted to share with you the following subject, and the lawyers will appreciate this, and everybody should appreciate it, because it's a topic that I feel that we have to be aware of, and Moroccans especially don't like talking about this topic, which is wills, tzavaot, wills. But I said, it's during the 9 days, so we could slip it through. We could pass this topic of tzava, and a tzava according to the Torah, and what a person has to do in order so that according to the Torah, things should be proper and valid. So what we're going to discuss today is we're going to discuss three sections. We're going to discuss what is the proper Yerusha, the proper form of inheritance according to the Torah. We're going to discuss different modifications over the years, and particularly in Morocco in this regard. And then we're going to discuss how that applies nowadays and what a person should do. That's going to be the topic today. We have until 12:15, right? Okay, so B'ezrat Hashem, we have a lot to cover. It says in the Torah, Sefer Bamidbar, ve'el b'nei Yisrael tedaber lemor, ish ki yamut uben lo en lo. A person who passes on after 120, and he doesn't have a son. Ve'avartem enachalato lebito. So, according to the Torah, the sons are yoresh, the daughters do not inherit. V'imen lo bat, if there's no sons, then the daughter inherits. If there's no daughter, then it goes to the brothers. If there's no brothers, you go to the brothers of the father. And if there's no brothers of the father, it goes to l'she'ero hakarov elav mimishpachto. So you see a couple of things. The wife doesn't inherit. The daughter doesn't inherit. That's the Yerusha according to the Torah. Now, just a little bit of background information. And there's a seder, how exactly the seder of the Yerusha goes. And I will, leave the information. Anybody who wants me to email them all the information that I'll be saying, and different wills and that are used nowadays that are effective for for Ontario. I have no problem in doing so. So basically, it goes: if the wife dies, the husband gets it. The husband dies, the sons get it. There's no sons, the daughters, and so on and so forth. Now, why was it, everybody's wondering, why don't the daughters inherit at all? And why is it that the wife doesn't inherit? Nowadays, many people structure their estate very different than what's written in the Torah. And we have to understand, is that correct? And if it is correct, how does one make sure that it's done in a correct form according to the Torah? So, you have to understand a little bit of background information. A ketubah is there to ensure that the woman is protected even after her husband dies. The ketubah was usually a sum that took care of a lady until she gets remarried, or for a sizable amount that she's able to live comfortably. That's the purpose of the ketubah. So the intention of the Torah is that a wife gets her ketubah And the sons get the inheritance that passes on from one shevet to the next, which goes according to the father, right? The shevet, the minhagim go according to the father, and the Judaism goes, and the Judaism goes according to the mother. The daughters don't inherit at all if there are sons. Why? The way that it was structured for sure throughout the generations was that the brothers, and Rabbi Shalom Misas points this out, that the brothers would take care of their sisters until they get married, and then the sisters get married to people who have the inheritance from their father. And when the Gemara saw that things weren't going exactly as they should sometimes, they were mitaken isur nechasim, that a daughter gets a tenth of the estate, and they also made sure that the daughters get supported. Yeah, bat nizonet minich se'av. She also gets supported properly until she gets married. So all of these takanot were in place to make sure the daughters were taken care of. Already from the time of the Gemara, there were different concerns that the daughters weren't well taken care of. So there was enactments called ketuvot bedin dichrin. That means a ketubah to make sure that if a woman is going to come with her son from a second marriage, so the Yerusha should still stay by the first estate. I'm not going to get into the details of the ketubah of the takana, but there was such a thing called ketubat benin dichrin. And later on in the 1500s, by the time of the Girush Sfarad, there was the takanot of the Chachmei Castilla. Castilla was a place in Spain where many of the Megurashim, many of the people who got expelled in 1492, they ended up in Morocco, in Turkey, in other areas. The takanot of Chachmei Castilla are brought down in many sources. There's the takanot Chachmei Tulitulia, which is Toledo, which is brought down in the Rosh and in the Tur Even Haezer Siman Kuf Yud Chet, and it later developed in the takanot Chachmei Castilla. In the Sefer Torot Emet from Rabbi Rafael Berdugo, he brings that the takana in Morocco, in Morocco, that they accepted the takanot of the Chachmei Castilla, was that the daughter, hiniach banim ubanot shelo nisu me'olam tireshenu habanot chalakim shavim im hazecharim. The daughters should inherit just like the sons. So here we have it, the takanot Chachmei Castilla, more than 500 years ago. They already mitaken that the daughters should get an equal portion of the sons. There's a big question. How could they do that? Going against the Torah? It's going against the Torah. The Torah says that the daughters don't inherit. They make a takana, the daughters do inherit. That's question number one. How does that work? To make the question stronger, there's a prohibition in the Gemara called Eibure Achsanata, which means switching the nahala, switching the inheritance from the proper place where it's supposed to be to another place. The Gemara says in Masechet Bava Batra, Daf Kuf Lamed Gimel Amud Bet, Toshma de Amar le Shmuel le Rav Yehuda, Shinena, sharp one, Lo tehave bi abure achsanata ve'afilu mibra bisha libri atava. You shouldn't change the way of inheritance. Give to one son more than the other, even if it's from a bad son to a good son. What's called a bad son? If there's one son who's a mehalel Shabbat b'farhesia or not, is that included in the prohibition? Is a discussion among the poskim. We're talking about even if it's a son who's not being mechabed his father properly, you shouldn't take away an inheritance from him. And the Rashbam says furthermore, afilu leharbot la'echad v'lemayet la'echad, even to make one a greater portion from one to the other, also one shouldn't do. So you have an unbelievable thing over here that there's an Isura Buruch Sanata, which makes the question stronger. How were Chachmei Castilla able to play around with the Seder Yerusha? That's a big question. The Ashkenazim had a slightly different way to, I wouldn't say circumvent, but to make sure that daughters also get a Yerusha, because over time they saw that daughters would not be taken care of properly from their sons, and they wanted to leave for their daughters as well. So the Ashkenazim had something brought down in the Ramah, Siman Resh Ayin Vav, something called a Shtar Chatzi Zachar. What does a Shtar Chatzi Zachar mean? It's a halachic patent to make sure that the brothers are Yoresh properly. So how does a Shtar Chati Zachar? I have it over here, and that was used till today, and that's going to be, we're going to remember this for the end of this Shiur when we present the different options. Many people, when they make a halachic will, they use as the base a Shtar Chati Zachar. What's a Shtar Chati Zachar? Let's say you have Reuven, who has a son and a daughter. He has a son called Shimon. Let's say you have Yaakov, he's the father. He has a son Reuven, and he has a daughter Dinah. Okay, and he wants to leave to Dinah a sizable portion, right? He wants to leave her half. He has $1 million. He wants to leave $500,000 to Yaakov. Wants to leave $500,000 to Reuven, $500,000 to Dinah. So what's he going to do? He's going to make Reuven. He's going to obligate himself. Yaakov is a person is allowed to obligate himself a chov. He says, so a person writes in a shtar, I am obligating myself an amount larger than $500,000 that he wants to give over. So I am obligating myself $600,000 as a chov, as a debt. And if Reuven makes sure to carry out the ratzon that I have, which is that Dinah should get $500,000, the obligation, the loan is null, it's void, and that way he ensures halachically that it half. Otherwise, there's a chov, and they have to pay from the Yerusha the chov. So this way they ensure a shtar chatzi zachor makes sure that Reuven has half and Dinah has half. That's a shtar chatzi zachar. It's made with a kinyan, and that's what we used for generation by the Ashkenazim. By the Sfaradim and Chachmei Castilla, they didn't have that issue. There was a takana, the daughter gets. It was a takana that way. So according to the Ashkenazim, it's not so difficult why Eburech Sanata. He didn't make a difference in the Seder Yerusha. He just made sure, holding his son by the gunpoint, to make sure that he gives over that money. Which there also could be a question of Eburech Sanata, but it's less of a question when somebody makes a takana against the Din Torah. So the one who solves this question for Chachmei Castilla was Rabbi Shlomo ben Dinan. In Morocco, he was called Hamelech Shlomo. He was one of the great Moroccan Hachamim. His son was Rabbi Shaul ben Dinan, who was the Av Bedin, the chief rabbi of Morocco in the 40s and the 50s. In the 40s and that era. So his father was Rabbi Shlomo ben Dinan. He wrote Shelot Utshuvot Asher Li Shlomo, Siman Vav. And he asks, how does this takana, it goes against the Din Torah? And there's one option like this, that there is no prohibition of aburi achsanata if you leave over a little bit to the daughter. If you leave over four zuzeh, and the shiur of arba zuzeh is brought down from the balaitur. It's questionable what that means. There's different teshuvot by Igrot Moshe. What is the shiur of 4 zuzeh? It means $1,000, but not a lot of money. Let's say even a person would leave $1,000 towards his daughter. Already he doesn't have the prohibition of aburi achsanata. He doesn't like that. The Rashbam is already not mashma that way. The Rashbam says even if somebody switches from a lot to a little bit, already he violates the prohibition of aburi achsanata. But the Ksot HaChoshen and others bring this balaitur, and some are somech on this balaitur that there's no prohibition of aburi achsanata as long as you leave the son a little bit. You leave the son a little bit, but you're leaving him a lot. So there's no prohibition of giving over to others because you left a little bit. The prohibition of aburi achsanata is totally wiping out one of the inheritors, and this is not the case over here. But he doesn't go with that, and the Chatam Sofer and others also don't go with this, and they say that it has to be done according to Din Torah. So the question is, how did we make a takana that's against Din Torah that the daughters should inherit? So says the Asher Li Shlomo the following, that when Hachamim saw that, he says the following, I'll read you the Lashon. B'tnai הכלל השני, הפרש גדול יש בין כוח וחוזק תקנת וליטוליה, עמדו ותקנו ראשי ומנהיגי תקנות ביניהם, וסילקו ירושות הבעל שהתורה זכתה בו, ומדו ליורשי האישה, ובוודאי רשאים בני האלים לתקן ולהסיע אפילו מדיבת תורה, לתקן תקנות בכל דור ודור, ולעשות כתוב ביניהם. A takana is different than aburi achsanata. Aburi achsanata is a private person wants to make sure that his son doesn't get things done proper. He doesn't want his son to have a Yerusha, so he makes his will against the Torah. That's called aburi achsanata. But when it's a takana of the tzibur doing it to make sure that everything happens kedin Torah, so that one is making a takana, and that takana is able to override even the din Torah. As he brings from the Teshuvot Tashbat that way, because if it's a takana that there's Bava Batra in the beginning of Bava Batra that says that something that's for the benefit of the community, a person is allowed to make certain takanot. So that's how he solves the issue. Okay? In Shnat Tavshin Yud Bet, I believe that's 1952. There was a gathering of the Chachamim of Morocco called the Mu'atzat Chachmei Rabbanim. They were meeting in Casablanca for, I think they had 6 or 7 different meetings over the years. And their purpose was getting together and making certain takanot and certain enactments that would benefit the community. It's a fascinating subject. There's takanot about the schools, about the mikvaot, about the Shabbat observance, about many different things. And Hagon Rav Michael Ankawa got up and made a takana the following. He made a suggestion like this, that daughters should inherit as well, and not only unmarried daughters. The takana of Castilla was unmarried daughters should have a Yerusha, but married daughters, they're taken care of by their husband. Why should they get a Yerusha? Rabbi Michael Ankawa wanted that married daughters, also get a Yerusha. And there was a big commotion among the Chachamim whether that should be accepted or not. And it was put on hold, and there was much discussion. Well, what happened is that Rabbi Shaul ben Dinan, I think he was leading these meetings at the time, and he gave the bottom line that people should, the Rabbanim should review it and write their response. It should come back to them, and they should discuss it among themselves to decide whether this should be done or not. So they come back. So in Shnat Tavshin Tedvav, that's 1955. Rabbi Baruch Toledano, Rabbi Yisrael Baruch Toledano from Meknes, and he was fire. He was he was fire, and he was totally against. He says, how do we have the chutzpah to get up and make a takana explicitly against the Torah? The Torah is, I understand that unmarried daughters, there's a big tzorich, and they bring down the shelut teshuvot asher lishlomo. But if there's no takana, there's no real reason for banot nisot, just so that we should be like all the other nations, he says he didn't accept that. Rabbi Shalom Misas also wrote a very long teshuvah against this takana. The only living chacham, to my knowledge, that is alive nowadays, that was at those meetings, is Rav Agon Rav Yoshua Maman. Hashem should give him a long life. He was from the city of Sofro. Later on, he was in Rabat and Saleh, and now he lives in Yerushalayim, right next in the center city on the Rehov Bar Guria number 14. I visit him very often. He's a tremendous Talmid Chacham and personality. And he got up in the meetings. He was the youngest of the Dayanim there. He got up in the meetings, and he enforced that, okay, at least we should make a takana that the unmarried daughters, we should enforce it, that they get the Yerusha, just like it's written in the takanot. And in his sefer, he sent his sefer over to Yerushalayim, and Hagon Rav Yehuda Tzadka, was the Rosh Yeshiva of Porat Yosef, went ballistic. He said, what's going on over here? You're making a takanat against the Din Torah. Rabbi Shulman writes him, we're not. We're only talking about the unmarried daughters. The married daughters, that wasn't decided on yet. It was such a commotion that there was never a takana for married daughters. There were certain chachamim who were pushing the envelope that should be done, and other chachamim came out strong against it. So the takana remained that the Chachmei Castilia's takana was that the unmarried daughters, they get a Yerusha, and the married daughters do not get a Yerusha, at least not in a form of a takana. Okay? Now, that is the history, what happened those days. Let's get to nowadays. Should get? Well, because everybody else is doing it nowadays. That's the law by the secular people, and then we should try to be a little bit more how it is nowadays. And the Rabbanim didn't like that. I don't know if that's exactly Rav Michael Anko, but there was another Rav that definitely was pushing it that way. So let's get to the halacha nowadays. What does a person do nowadays? Number one is that I've spoken to many different Rabbanim. A person
is obligated and is very, I would say, encouraged and obligated. I can't say the word obligated. Very strongly encouraged to make a will, to make sure that there is no machlokot in the family. He's encouraged to make a will. What type of will? What type of will? Number one is that if a person relies on the secular will, just he's making a secular will, what could be the potential problem in relying on a secular will? We're going to discuss three options. We're going to discuss giving a matana to one's children. And then the other option is the shtar chati zachar. And the third option is the secular wills nowadays. And each one of them we'll discuss and what's the best way to do it. Because we're not living, as far as I know, even Montreal, which people say is like Morocco, is not really Morocco. There's no takanot over there that that takanot Chachamei Castilla are enforced. There are takanot that a person could have a nice hull, a henna hull that's already decorated, but that's as far as it goes. Rabbi, am I right or wrong, Rabbi Chabush? There's no takanot in Montreal as far as there's takanot Bill 101, that's as much as I know. So yeah, we don't know. So we're not living in Morocco regarding these takanot, so they're not relevant for nowadays. So we have to find out what is relevant. So if a person is going to make behedya, a takana, against the Torah, that we saw already, the Hachamim of Morocco, and the Hachamim throughout the generations weren't happy with. But in a private one-on-one basis, a person wanting to give to his daughters a sizable portion, in a way that he's not saying, I'm making a will against them, it seems to be the Hachamim said that's okay. And there's no problem of Abu Reach Sanata. Could be because of the 4 Zuzim, or it could be because the son is giving it on his own will. There's different reasons for that. That was the minhag throughout the generations in Klal Yisrael, that a person is able to obligate himself to give to his daughter, not in a form of a will, because that's not effective, it's against the Torah, but in a private basis to give to his daughters. And it's encouraged nowadays from the Rabbanim that I spoke to, many Rabbanim, big Rabbanim that I spoke to, that a person should give more or less the equal portions to all the children, sons and daughters, married or not married. Because there could be big machlokot afterwards, and limana shalom, they should try to work something out. That is the hadrach. That is the answers that I got. Of course, if Rabbi Chabusha has a different view, it's obvious. You could speak to him on a private basis, and obviously he's the Rav over here, and he decides. I'm just saying, I'm expressing like this in the form of shiur, of learning, that this is what I came out with. I know that Rabbi Pam Shlita told me that his father, Rav Avram Pam, left like $9,000 or something, that should be split out according to the Yerusha of the Torah. Everything, like the Bechor gets double, we didn't even get into that, the Bechor gets double, and the sons get, and the daughters don't get, so that they fulfill the concept of the Torah in that way, which there is a Mekor in the Torah that way, but everything else, many people, they split in an equal form of a shtar chatzi zachar. And the shtar, now there's 3 ways how to do it. There's 3 ways that. Number one is a shtar matana. A person writes during his lifetime that I'm bequeathing this and this gift to my son, this and this gift to my daughter, this and this gift to my other son, and this and this gift to whatever, to Kol Torah. Yeah. Now, no. During his lifetime. Now, what's the problem with this? What's the problem? I have a shtar matana over here, written by one of the lawyers in Ontario. I could email it afterwards. The problem with this shtar matana is that anything that a person's going to acquire afterwards is not part of this. So he has to keep on adding on. It's not practical. So I have over here, it's called the deed of gift, the shtar matana. You see, he writes over here, therefore, the laws of Ontario, etc., etc. Donor, witness, donor, yeah. Lawyer, yeah. Gift renewed on this, another gift renewed on this, That means new acquisitions could be added on as they go along. So that's not very practical. But some people do that. They have big gifts, and the small stuff they're living in a condo in Florida. They don't have all of their nechassim, all of their properties they have to worry about. The second option is a shtar chatzi zachar. Shtar chatzi zachar is, as we mentioned, the Rama, that a person obligates himself and he has to write down to the sum over here was $10 million. That 1 hour prior to his decease, he should be obligated in this amount, and unless his will, which is a separate piece of paper, should be followed. Okay, and if his will is followed, then the debt is waived. There's a big Talmud Chacham in New York called Rav Shraga Feivel Cohen, the Mechaber Sefer Badei HaShulchan, that he has 5 or 6 different halachot that he brings down that are not included in the Shtar Chatzi Zachar, so therefore somebody has to make another shtar. It's a different subject. I'm just mentioning it. He has a kutras midor dor that discusses this, and he has an addition to the Shtar Chatzi Zachar. Most people use this one that I mentioned. The third, which is the simplest, and it's accepted by many poskim, which is a secular will with a little bit of an addition. What's the problem with writing a secular will? A person's writing a secular will. Why shouldn't that be valid according to the halacha? There's 2 issues. Number 1, en adam makne davar shelo ba la'olam. A person can't bequeath something that's not in the world yet. A person is only able to bequeath something that is in the world. But I'm sorry, en adam makne davar le'achar mita. Right? Once a person dies, he's not around to bequeath it. So he's saying, so what does a will state? When I pass this thing, pass this world, I will give this and this. He's not around. He can't do that. Right? So that's why a secular will shouldn't work. He's going to say, after I die, this way. It's not Bala Olam yet. It doesn't work. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a very big chidush. He says that secular wills are valid. En adam makne davar le'achar mita. He says, yeah. After mita, not. But there's a time in between while he's dying that it's not chaser a kinyan. It's not missing a kinyan. There's no chisaron of gemilut da'at. He says there you don't need a ma'aseh kinyan. It goes automatically. He says, and it would work. And he says a secular will works. A secular will works. Many poskim go this way. Rabbi Miller from over here, Toronto, also says that all a person has to add on, and I could email this to the lawyers who take care of wills. He has to add on one line. I hereby declare and testify that all gifts, bequests, and instructions in this will are effective under Jewish law. And that way, it's like he's mehayev himself, and a person is able to obligate himself in that way also. And I don't know if it's because of Odita or it's more of Hodat Baldin. He mentioned to me it's because of Hodat Baldin. He agrees that he is giving over the nechassim in this way, and that's all. So a person can write a whole will, and at the end he writes, I hereby declare and testify that all gifts, bequests, and instructions in this will are effective under Jewish law. And that, according to Rav Moshe Feinstein, for sure is okay, even without this line. According to other poskim, it's worthwhile to do this, because that way, if somebody ever contests it in another beit din that doesn't follow Moshe Feinstein, a person knows he's okay. If a person wants to really be 100%, he does a shtar chatzi zachar, and then he's really clean on all corners. But at least a will should be written to avoid any type of strife. Because if the will is not written, the sons get the Yerusha, the daughters don't. And if the daughters take it willingly against the sons, and the sons are in a fight against the daughters, and the daughters take it, it's gezel. The money is gezel. It's not kiddushin, it's gezel. So if a secular will was written, Moshe Feinstein to rely on. But no will at all, then it's they're going to come along. Well, the law of Ontario says this and that, but that's against Din Torah, and then the daughters are taking not rightfully, and it's a whole slew of problems. So in order to avoid all of this, a person should go to his lawyer, should write a will. He could add on that line if he wants to do a shtar chatzi zachar, matov u'manayim, shtar matana, matov u'manayim, and that way he's clean on everything. That is what a person should do nowadays. Yes. Yes, so I mentioned like this.
And also the will that you're doing, according to the Protestant Ontario, is you're bequeathing after death. And that now falls into the Jewish law of
En adam makne davar le'achar mita.
Torah, that you have to give Yerusha only to the boy with the Torah.
Right. So Rav Moshe Feinstein says that if a person writes in his will that his daughters should inherit, that's like a kinyan that works, even nachar mita. So he made a kinyan to his daughter nachar mita. He doesn't see it as a chisaron. He doesn't see it as a detriment, a secular will. Rabbi Miller says a person adds on that line, he's for sure okay. Others will say no, he has to add on a shtar chati zachar. So what I say is like this. A person has plenty to rely on if he follows Rav Moshe Feinstein, and if he adds in that line, for sure. If a person wants to be extra cautious that all batidanim will be okay, he knows there's fights in the family, etc., then he could do a shtar chati zachar. But if a person generally, there's no fights in the family, wants to do according to halacha, and he knows the children are going to do their parents' will, it's okay to do a regular secular will. Oh, according to Jewish, no. According to Jewish law, that's what you, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. When he says effective under Jewish law is that the will should be carried out according to the person's ratzon. In other words, because the instructions in this will are effective. In other words, even according to halacha, the person is saying, I am aware that I'm giving this, and this, and to my daughter, and I'm able to make a kinyan to my daughter. Well, it's right when a person's dying, he is bequeathing it to his daughters. In other words, what he's saying is that I agree that the portions that I'm giving to my daughters are being transferred according to a Jewish kinyan. That's what it means. I should have clarified that more. Thank you. Yes.
This will is good for the CV?
Yeah, so, that's not my thing. You have to ask Maurice. This is good. If he adds on that line, matov u'manayim.
But you have a lawyer, you have to stem.
I'm not a lawyer. That I'm not. That.
You can write it on time.
Yeah, that I don't know. Okay, so as a summary, a person should be vigilant and careful to have proper estate planning. That way, he avoids machlokot in the family. And if a suggestion is that all the children should get equal, and the way how to make it to get equal, that it shouldn't be considered that the daughters are gezel, is either a person does a secular will and adds on a line that it's effective according to the Torah, either a person does a shtar chati zachar. Chazaku baruch. We'll take just to clarify, by estate planning, I was discussing the case where you have sons and daughters, and there's no wife in the picture. But many people nowadays, what they do, I think most people, is that they will leave everything to their wife, or they'll leave a sizable portion to their wife, and their wife will take care of it. So the woman will make sure to make a proper will according to halacha that the sons and the daughters should be yoresh. So that in estate planning, obviously that works the same way. I'm sorry?
Whoever goes first, then,
Yeah. Obviously, that's dependent upon if the wife goes first, the husband goes first. But it's all structured in that way. Yes, Jimmy.
So what's the thing with the double portion for the bechor?
So a double portion for the bechor is definitely the halacha that's written in the Torah, and if there's no secular or other type of will, the bechor gets double. What does he get double from? Money in the bank account or not? That's totally that's a discussion of poskim only from muchzak and not only from tangible money, not investment money that they don't have access to. However, if there is a will that a person says he wants his bechor to get like everyone else, that obviously takes precedence. And that person wants to decide if he wants to give this bechor more, he's in there, could do whatever he wants. Yes, Martin.
How do you start the Takanal Castilla talking about daughters? All of a sudden you overcome the double for the bechor and the wife.
Because it's not a takana that we're making. We're not saying we're forgetting about the Yerusha of the Torah and we're making a new takana. That you're not allowed to make a takana. But a person personally is allowed to give whatever gifts he wants to his children. And that's what he's doing by a secular will. He's not saying, I'm saying the inheritance is this way. He's saying, I understand the inheritance that way. I want to give a gift. Before a person says he wants to give a gift before he dies or even while he's dying, this is the gift he wants to give, and he doesn't want to leave inheritance. So, Rabbi, that's what some poskim say, to fulfill inheritance, leave a little portion that it should go according to halacha. That's how they say.